That's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody. Same day of recording, and same shirt. I swear I'm not homeless. Welcome to February. Also, welcome to the Dresden Files, officially the actual series this time, with Book 1, Stormfront by Jim Butcher. Now, I thought this was a ton of fun. Is it Shakespeare? Absolutely not. The prose are, I won't say they're simple, but they are, they're very quick, very fast-paced. Jim Butcher's really good with comedy. Some of it very much borders on the juvenile, but it's overall fun. I enjoyed it enough, and I'm really endeared to Dresden, despite the male gaze, which is certainly a problem in this series. What I think we also must take into mind is that this is a first-person series. Most of the stuff I read, they usually use third person, which I typically prefer. This is a first-person series. I don't usually tend to like first person very much. That being said, because it is first person, we must also understand that we are having the most intimate. It's even though third person still gives you the same thoughts that a character may be feeling, there is a distance removed from it because it's in third person. When you are reading Dresden and you hear I and I and I again and again, you are in the vehicle. You are in the mindset of Dresden himself. You are Dresden. You know what Dresden knows. You see what Dresden sees. And yes, he looks at women a lot and he kind of objectifies them. That's true. And I hear it gets worse in certain places. Sometimes with 17-year-old girls. But what we must understand, what people fail to do, we are so quick to cancel or hate on people. Now, listen, Dresden, yes, there's a lot of looking. But I think what matters the most is how Dresden, his actions. None of us really can control our thoughts, right? But we can control our actions. And I feel he is always very respectful when it comes to action toward women. At least from this first book. Now, does that mean it doesn't get or does mean it won't get annoying when I start to see it again and again in these books? I'm sure it will get annoying. But in terms of in-universe, in terms of the character, I think, Dresden himself is quite aspirational. Not all of him, but his desire to do good is really strong. He has such a strong conviction for morality and justice and kindness and goodness. And while, again, he may have the male gaze, he's very respectful to women when it comes down to it. And I understand why people may have an issue with it. I also recognize this was written when I was like a wee lad. Like, I was a child when this came out, and, life has changed a lot in 20 years. Society has changed. Expectations have changed. But I'm not going to put that on a book from the early 2000s. I'm just not. I don't want to do that. Some people feel like, no, we have to measure everything by current day standards, but I think that's silly. I think that's silly to do so. It's the same thing when you look at history. You can judge a civilization based on today's standards, but you can't then do a honest, objective look into cultures and history and society about these people and be like, well, they're all just bad because they allowed this. I mean, if for example, slavery, I mean, like, if we're going to condemn every single person ever, then that's going to be, most of planet Earth, because most of planet Earth has had slaves at one point or another. So but there's other aspects of a lot of cultures that are really unique, and really were something special, despite the, the negative blots within it. So I think it's just too minimalist and too reductive to reduce everything to today's standards. I just think it's silly. Like I would never pick up Conan again if I, didn't think about the fact that those books were written in the 30s, and there's very clearly written in the 30s in some aspects. But like I said, I don't think it's that egregious with Dresden. It's just yeah, he it very much. I mean, think about the songs in the 2000s. Think about all the songs that were coming out then, any of them, and how sexualized the women were. Half the songs are about sexualizing women. Hips Don't Lie, Shakira, Shakira. Justin Timberlake with I'm Bringing Sexy Back. I can go on. This this was the era that these books were written in, and that has to be taken into account. But despite that, Bob, again, I mean, I first met him in the comic, but Bob is so funny. I love Bob. He's great. Great character. The mob boss, Marcone, is fascinating. I hope he's given a lot of depth because he already feels like he has a bunch of depth within his character already. And I'm really looking forward to see what else might become of this character. Murphy, I think she's a fantastic female character so far. Definitely with room to grow, but for the 2000s, I think there's a great, strong character there. Um, and if we're gonna give disses to Jim Butcher in terms of anything, can we also do that for Robert Jordan and the woman in Wheel of Time? Because I was promised strong female characters, very nuanced. And what I've gotten so far, I feel like is a stereotype of woman. So I don't know. But woman claim it's super inclusive and good. What do I know? I'm not a woman, but I'm just telling you what my thoughts. But and Dresden himself. Right, we have a very small cast of characters so far. I'm sure it will expand over time, or even the knight Morgan. Um, Even though he's against Dresden, he's also kind of endearing in his own way. So I can't say I really like the guy, but if he pops up again and again, I'm hoping they'll do more with him. And Dresden, of course. I mean, you would hope, if you're reading from this man's perspective, that you would like the character, and it's not going to be for everyone. But he's not some macho strongman. He's very self-aware of his flaws, of his insecurities. Very relatable in that way, and he's very sensitive, and he's very vulnerable. And I think, even though he's a wizard that will kick butt and will save the day, I'm sure, I think it's important to champion male heroes that don't need to be that. I mean, look at Spider-Man. Yes, he's super strong. He beats up super villains, but he's also just a kid in high school that deals with his own struggles. And I think that's good for kids and adults to remember that it's okay. That, maybe you're not a 6'10" firefighter with big, massive muscles. You don't have to be. You can still be a hero in your own right, in your own way. So, the mystery, I thought everything was well paced here. I thought all the three different little sub plots that were going on kind of fused together rather perfectly, and it was a great crescendo. I mean, I've heard about the Sanderlanche, and I haven't read any Sanderson books yet, but it certainly was a pretty competent first story. And like I said, this is no sorry, it's no Name of the Wind or anything. I haven't even read that yet, but the prose are simple. They get the job done. It's really funny. It's well paced, but it's not, you're not reading this for superb writing or anything. But it's a really fun time, and I think you'll get a lot out of it if you can get past some of those hiccups with Dresden. I'm getting some spoilers. If you don't want any spoilers, or if you've read this series 100 times over, you can stick around. But if you don't want any spoilers, then there is the door. Okay. So, phone. I gotta go to my phone real quick. Okay. Science, the largest religion of the 20th century, had become somewhat tarnished by images of exploding space shuttles, crack babies, and a generation of complacent Americans who had allowed the television to raise their children. iPad kids. Nowadays. People were looking for something. I think they just didn't know what. And even though they were once again starting to open their eyes to the world of magic and the arcane that had been with them all the while, they still thought it must be some kind of a joke. Karen Murphy, who is the director of the special investigations of the police force, she investigates weird things. Dresden gets called up by her because a couple in the act of sex died, and it seems to have been caused by a wizard. I'll check my phone again. The Velvet Room was a high-priced escort service run by a woman named Bianca. Wait, that's the right space? Yeah. Bianca kept a flock of beautiful, charming, and witty women, pandering them to the richest men in the area for hundreds of dollars an hour. Bianca sold the kind of female company that most men only see on a television in the movies. I also knew that she was a vampiress of considerable influence in the Never Never. Remember the Never Never, it'll keep popping up. She had power with a capital P. I tried to explain the Never Never to Murphy before. She didn't really comprehend it, but she understood that Bianca was a badass vampiress who sometimes squabbled for territory. We both knew that if one of Bianca's girls was involved, the vampiress must have been involved somehow too. This is also where we meet Johnny Marcone, who's a mafia member, and for some reason, he doesn't want Harry to investigate. Harry says he murdered his first love, but I think it's a bit more complicated than that. We also learn, to add on from the previous story I'd read, where we learn that Santa Claus existed, in this book we get told that Santa Claus is a fairy, which I thought was fun. So Morgan is Dresden's warden and is keeping watch on him for the White Council, because the White Council is kind of not totally on board with Dresden being a private investigator in Chicago. And White Council blames Harry for kind of what happened. They think he caused the killing of the couple. So now it's also like Dresden must clear his name. We also learn that Dresden has a cat named Mister, and I loved the cat Mister. Later on, Dresden goes to meet up with Bianca, and it's a very tense scene. She's sexualized, but I don't think that one can be held against Jim Butcher or these books, because since the beginning of time, since Dracula, and since vampires have been introduced, sensuality has always been a part of their lore. I mean, did you see Sinners? I thought, like, man, I hope nobody walks in on me watching this. Like, that was sexual, okay? So I can't put that on Jim Butcher specifically. Dresden gets his head bashed in by someone, and he's kind of woozy and out of it, and Murphy helps him, and she's annoyed at him, but she's very tender and nurturing to him, which I thought was an important little moment between them. Linda Randall was somebody that Dresden was trying to talk to. That was a whole part of the book, but she ends up getting murdered. And then I'm gonna go back to my phone real quick. I thought about my father. I usually do. When I get that low, he was a good man, a generous man, a hopeless loser, a stage magician at a time when technology was producing more magic than magic. He never had much to give his family. He was on the road most of the time, playing rundown houses, trying to scratch at a living for my mother. He wasn't there when I was born. He wasn't there when she died. He showed up more than a day after I'd been born. He gave me the names of 3 magicians, then took me with him on the road, entertaining children, retirees, performing in school gymnasiums, grocery stores. He was always generous, kind and more generous than we could afford, really. He was always a little bit sad. He'd show me pictures of my mother, talk about her every night. It got to where I almost felt that I knew her myself. As I got older, the feeling increased. I saw my father, I think as she must have, as a dear, sweet, gentle man. A little naive, but honest and kind. Someone who cared for others and who didn't value material gain over all else. I can see why she would have loved him. That's kind of the last thing I have to say from that. I really enjoyed that little. Again, it's not the most poetic prose you've ever seen, but there's a lot of pathos in there. And I think Jim Butcher does excel in that. And lastly, we learn that Victor's, early on in the book, this lady calls Dresden and then tells him to forget about it. And it all comes full circle at the end. Her husband's the one that's been doing all these murders. So, Dresden confronts him, takes care of the problem, and he's resolved of being guilty of whatever. But the guy could have been doing it on his own, which means he had to have been getting help from someone, which seems to be the lingering, overarching plot. And what happens next? Well, you have to wait for my review of book 2. So, till then, well, don't read the next book when the full moon is out. Until then, you fool, have a good one.